Welcome back. You're watching The Contrarians, where I'm joined by three pollies who have lowered the tone of the show. Ed Husic, Alex Hawke and Nick Champion. And we've got emails continuing to come in. Mark has said, worthy try, but please no more current pollies. I quite like those three, but you'll never get them off message. Now, something where hopefully we're not going to be on or off message, but we can talk frankly, is about the ongoing standoff between, it has to be said, you three, in your own ways, about refugee policy. Now, jokes aside, but serious discussion, can't parties get together and try to come up with a compromise, even if both sides don't agree that ultimately it is one that's going to work because it's a compromise, but at least give it a shot and then perhaps baby step our way towards an outcome?
Well, I think we need to see what advice comes back in this 6-week period. I think it's unfortunate that we didn't get a bill through the Parliament in the last sitting, and I do think there's a sense in the country they want what you want, which is a grand bargain between the parties.
It's kind of everyone's fault, though, isn't it?
Oh, no, that's right. We all share some of the blame of the Parliament's failure, and so we would all share in the success if we got a bill through. And we need a legislative compromise, but I guess we've got to wait and see, don't we?
Alex, you were saying off air that you thought, you know, Tony Abbott was a little bit bloody-minded about all of this. I mean, what are you getting
to me? You might as well get it.
Yeah, well, look, putting that, you said all jokes aside,
true,
but anyway, you've brought one in. And seriously, I think, yeah, obviously people do want compromise, but that means you have to have real compromise on the table. And one of the points I made when I was speaking about this in the House was, even the committee that got together, or the all-party group, or some Liberals went and talked to other people. That's all fine. Nobody's got a problem with that. But if they produce something that people still disagree with, and I still disagreed with what they came up with, well, my job is to stand there in front of my voters and Australians and say, I still disagree with this. Even if that is a few groups working together, that doesn't necessarily produce all wisdom.
Why didn't you go?
Because it's, I view the Parliament as a vehicle for that.
You're talking about the committee.
Yeah, it was a meeting.
I don't think if you go to a meeting, you're moral, and if you didn't go to a meeting, you're not. People are all concerned about it.
We would have known your views had you gone. I mean, you could have got up and said...
You do know my views, and you could probably tell me my views.
In a different setting.
But I think the seeds of a compromise are here. Everyone knows it. It's just someone's got to bite the bullet. And the onus, as always, is the people in government. They've got to bite the biggest bullet. They've got to say, all right, this is going to taste bad. This is going to be...
That's not right. Can I just say that's not right insofar as... Well, that's not right insofar as this, where the government has tried to put forward a proposal. The other side of politics, your side of politics, didn't agree with it. We then said, well, OK, we still want to be able to do what we want to do, but we will embrace what you've put forward, even though we disagree with it, Nauru. Yeah, sure. And we tried to do that too. That was unacceptable. Then we had Scott Morrison saying on TV, even if they gave us everything on the 7:30 report, even if they gave us everything, we still wouldn't do it. Now, the fact of the matter is, as I said, and this is going back to my contribution in that debate, you know, we are always going to have more people wanting to get here than places available. And so the issue will then become, if people are not able to get here in the timeframes they want, how do they get here? Is it safe? Is it right? And I don't think it is, and I know you think otherwise, but I really disagree with your point.
Onshore processing, unashamedly, and
yeah,
I take
and I don't think that's the right way to go.
It's got integrity, that position, in terms of having its own...
I appreciate you saying that.
No, I'm not agreeing with you, but you can justify it, you have got integrity. I think the government has walked both sides of the street from when it got elected on this, and they still haven't cleared it up.
So government should never change its view.
You're still trying to have the bet both ways. You've got to get a position and stick with it, and I shouldn't have to tell you this.
Hang on, the argument is that the Malaysian solution, according to Tony Abbott and Scott Morrison, isn't having a bet each way. It's going too far, you're now saying, because it's not a signatory to the UN Convention.
Some of the features that make the whole thing work under our system. And we're saying we do want to go back to our system.
Actually, I'm interested. What did you say? What do you reckon worked under your system?
TPVs. I'm sure about it.
That's it.
But then Tony Abbott... that's not what the figures show. Actually, what the figures show was a combination of events that made that stopped the boats.
And being strong on it, being very strong on it.
But it was a combination of events. When you introduced TPVs, in fact, the numbers didn't fall. It was actually...
Immediately.
No, that's right. It was a combination of events.
And I think they did.
But the Liberals would say... I mean, I don't agree with this, but the Liberals would say it's a combination of policies that resulted in things changing.
And those policies. You've got to have strength in what you do.
But the difficulty is...
The events of the day have nothing to do with it. Well, I mean... But you had major regional conflicts in Sri Lanka and Afghanistan where we ramped up our involvement, and you had people seeking refuge as a result of that, and that's never taken into account in this discussion. When people talk about the numbers increasing, and you look at the...
and you look at the... into account. Don't hold that against you.
And broadly speaking, I think...
But there's no coherency to your policy, and there is just no coherency to it. That's the problem.
Look, there's no coherency to yours either.
I can't agree with you about that. I don't like their policy, but it's pretty coherent.
No, I'll give you an example.
Yeah, well, Tony Abbott's never had idea that John Howard didn't think of
they're very,
first.
very comfortable not to have any UN involvement. In fact, they hate the UN, right? We all know this. They hate the UN, right? All three governments, having a go at the UN. Now they've got to have the UN convention. It's become sacrosanct and it has to be there and to maintain the nation's integrity. You guys are all over the shop, all over the shop on it. And now, and the difficulty is that I don't think it. I think there was this outburst of urgency and passion in the last few weeks of Parliament, and now what we need is people to actually sit in a room together.
People didn't
and
start
do
drowning
it
a few weeks ago. People have been drowning for years, and they drowned last year. People have been drowning for a long time.
Civex happened under your policies.
Right, exactly. But nobody, you know, the last few weeks, I don't understand why suddenly everyone. What has changed is, I think people have realised there's no coherence to the government.
I'm just going to make this point. I actually don't think that there's any point. You know, the Scott Morrison comment for me betrayed the position, which is even if we did everything they wanted to, they wouldn't do it. I actually think this debate, the 7:30 interview. I actually think the debate has to be taken up in terms of the Greens, and their supporters do not even support what the Greens are putting forward.
So you want to see a war with the Greens?
Well, I think there has to be a really frank discussion with them about their continued support for onshore processing and the fact that it is having fatal consequences, and I think they do need to take a hard look at their position.
Do you think a lot of people in the Labor Party are getting sick and tired of this alliance with the Greens?
I think they're sick of, particularly when it comes to asylum seeker debate and legislation, of them taking a position of convenience where they know that they can bank on the Liberals voting with them, even though they ideologically are opposed to each other as to what they want to do. And as a result of that, because they wanted onshore processing, and now they've got it. Now there are these consequences, and they're trying to blame the major parties for it.
All right, we've had some emails coming in. One says, if these are our up-and-coming leaders, shoot me now. Another one, which I think is an interesting one, in relation to your point, Nick, about the loyal opposition, he points out to you that please tell Nick Champion that the loyalty of the opposition was to the monarch.
Yeah, that's right. Well, it was to the country.
Yeah, but ipso facto, they can argue against the government and play opposition as policy.
It is the Diamond Jubilee year. It's very popular to declare for the Queen as a monarchist. That's very good of you.
You know, a Republican in name only.
No, you'll win that fight. If you declare as a monarchist, you've won that fight.
I was born in a place called Elizabeth, so named after our monarch.
Just one of them.
But look, I guess the thing about it is we talked about Tea Party politics, and Morrison's comments on the 7:30 report were exactly that. It doesn't matter what you agree to, we're not going to settle this through the Parliament. It is a willful.
He didn't quite say that. He just refused to commit.
But it was a weird. It was a very weird moment, wasn't it?
Yeah, and look, it was. I think he would acknowledge that it wasn't a great interview.
And it betrayed a sentiment. It betrayed a sentiment.
There's no one moment. This is you're in government. This has been a long-term thing. It's coming for a long time.
Well, we hear a lot of this sort of stuff.
And you're trying to reach out. To your credit, you were saying we've got to change direction. We've got to do something different.
It's funny.
But you can't bite the bullet to get what has to be done.
It's funny, right? That you never ever said this during your 11 years in government. It was always the Senate wouldn't let us do this. If only the Senate would let us do this. Howard was out there hammering the Senate day in, day out.
They're building up double D triggers.
Yeah, that's right. Building up double D triggers.
And
that's because you didn't, and there was pressure on the Labor Party and others to legislate in the national interest.
All right, we are almost out of time. We've got less than a minute to go. So, quick final thoughts, predictions for the future. Ed Husic.
I'm hoping that, particularly through the expert group, we do reach a landing or an agreement about where we should head in terms of asylum seekers. Alex Hawke?
I don't think the government will come to the bullet on this and compromise on this issue, very important issue, but I think on a more positive note, I think Ed and Nick are looking good front bench positions under a return Kevin Rudd.
All right, and Nick Champion, we are out of time. Thanks for your company. Thank you to all of my panel for joining us on this particular episode of Contrarians. We'll be back at the same time next week. Be sure and tune in to Australian Agenda on Sunday, where the State Secretary of the Labor Party in New South Wales, Sam Dastyari, is our major guest, where he's got a bombshell to drop for that particular program. And we'll also be joined by Ross Garno to talk climate change, and Sarah Hanson-Young from the Greens to talk about asylum seekers. She's recently been visiting Indonesia. Thanks for your company.